Yes, no dia, bom dia. That's a lot. It seems there was no fire here. It's fire that didn't fall. The fire didn't fall against sensitive points in the territory and in occupied Crimea. In just a few days, Moscow saw a factory linked to the production of missile components being hit in Voronezh. Oil tanks caught fire in Kherson. Port structures in Kavkaz were attacked. The Dubna Space Communications Center was targeted, and airports in the Russian capital were also targeted. Not because of the new wave of drones. The Russian defense seems to be scrambling to make up for losses, trying to protect Moscow, shore up defenses in Crimea, and hide the vulnerability of a military machine that used to project strength. But now it's facing pressure at home. Putin accused Kyiv of trying to destabilize Russian society. But the fact is that the very war he pushed into Ukraine has come back into Russia in the form of fear, delays, fire, and awkward silence. Did Ukraine hit it? How did Russia become so exposed? I'll tell you all about it in a moment. If you like this kind of straightforward and no-nonsense content, consider subscribing because we have videos like this every day. The target identified by Ukrainian sources was an electronics factory used in the production of components for Russian missiles, including systems related to weapons like Skander and Kh-101. The attack was carried out with precision missiles launched from the air, according to the version released by the Ukrainian General Staff. That's where the Ukrainian pressure becomes clearer. Kyiv is trying to attack not only soldiers on the front line, but also the machinery that supplies Putin's war. After that, the images of Kirk underscored the gravity of the moment. Oil tanks were seen burning in the occupied Crimea region, near a strategic area for transporting fuel and supplies. Monitoring reports indicated that several tanks were hit, with some accounts saying that 4 to 5 out of the 7 tanks at the terminal were on fire. Kerch is extremely important because it is located near the bridge that connects Russia to Crimea. The region serves as a supply corridor for the occupied peninsula and for Russian operations in southern Ukraine. Port Kavkaz was also targeted. The facility is located on the other side of the Kerch Strait, in the Krasnodar region, and is used for maritime operations with Crimea. Posts and reports about the attack indicated fires in areas related to fuel storage and port infrastructure. There was also information circulating about ferries and structures used for cargo transport. This affects a fundamental part of the Russian effort, bringing ammunition, fuel, vehicles, and supplies to an occupied area that depends on vulnerable routes. The pressure on Crimea became even clearer when authorities installed by Moscow said that Ukraine also hit a railway bridge over the North Crimean Canal near Rostov. The operation was presented by Kyiv as part of an attempt to isolate the occupied peninsula and make it harder for Russian movement in the south. The bridge was considered a valuable logistical route for supplying Russian forces. After the first attack, another strike reportedly hit equipment used in repairing the structure. The message was simple. In practice, Moscow tries to fix it, Kyiv turns up the pressure again. While Crimea was burning at strategic points, the Moscow region also felt the impact. The Dubna Space Communications Center was hit, according to the Ukrainian General Staff. The Russian agency TASS stated that the site suffered a massive drone attack, but said that transmissions and communications were not affected and that no employees were injured. Even so, the symbolism is strong. Dubna is located in the Moscow region and is connected to Russia's satellite communications infrastructure. When a target like this makes the list, the sense of safe distance disappears. Moscow also faced disruptions at the airports. Sheremetyevo, Domodedovo, Vnukovo, and Zhukovsky even temporarily suspended flights during the wave of drone attacks. Mayor Sergei Sobyanin said that air defenses intercepted 84 drones targeting the capital in 24 hours. The Russian Ministry of Defense reported a total of 300 drones intercepted, including in occupied areas. Even using these numbers as an attempt to show efficiency, the very need to close airports reveals the extent of the embarrassment. Videos and reports of crowds at airports underscored that strain. For the Russian population, the war started to show up in lines, delays, cancellations, and fear of new disruptions. Putin tries to sell the image of control, but Moscow's routine was affected. Putin responded by saying that Ukraine is attacking civilian infrastructure to destabilize Russian society. This statement shows that the Kremlin understood the psychological effect of the Ukrainian campaign. The accusation tries to turn Russia into a victim, but lets an important point slip. The attacks are shaking overall confidence. Volodymyr Zelensky also escalated his rhetoric against Belarus. He demanded that Minsk remove relay stations that, according to Kyiv, help Russian drones operate against Ukrainian regions. Zelensky set a deadline and stated that Belarus still has time to dismantle the equipment. The Kremlin reacted, calling the demand aggressive and promised to discuss the case with Alexander Lukashenko. The tension shows that indirect support for the Russian machine can also become a political and military target for Ukraine. Belarus tries to say it doesn't want to participate directly in the war, but its history weighs heavily. It was through Belarusian territory that Russian troops advanced at the beginning of the 2022 invasion. Now, when Kyiv talks about relay stations and factories that help Moscow, the message is aimed at the support structure that keeps Russia breathing. Zelensky said that the supply of gasoline from Belarus to Russia grew 13 times between January and May compared to the same period before, while diesel is said to have tripled. This kind of flow helps Moscow adapt to attacks on refineries and terminals. That's why Ukraine is trying to close the loopholes. If the fuel keeps coming through another route, the pressure needs to reach that route as well. Ukraine has also been increasingly relying on drones produced within its own territory. Ukrainian authorities say that the overwhelming majority of the equipment used by the armed forces is already domestically produced. This capability has been a game changer because it allows for frequent attacks at a lower cost and with ever-increasing range. Instead of relying solely on external weaponry, Kyiv has waged a war of attrition using its own technology, intelligence, and selected targets. Russia still responds with attacks against Ukrainian cities. On June 22nd, Ukrainian authorities reported deaths and injuries in regions such as Sumy, Zaporizhia, and Odessa. This part cannot be ignored because it explains why Kyiv maintains the campaign against Russian infrastructure. Ukraine is trying to reduce Moscow's ability to continue bombing Ukrainian territory. The logic is to strike at the source of the attack, not just defend the airspace after the drones and missiles have already been launched. Mikhail Fedorov, the Ukrainian minister involved in technology and digital defense, had already spoken about the idea of isolating Crimea with drones. This sentence sums up the moment. Ukraine doesn't need to control the peninsula to have an immediate impact. It needs to make the occupation costly, unstable, and difficult to manage. And the images of fire in Kerch, the fuel problems, and the restrictions imposed by local authorities show that this pressure has already appeared on the ground. Moscow is trying to reinforce the capital with air defenses and protect sensitive sites, but this also exposes another problem. When systems need to be moved to defend buildings, refineries, and urban areas, other areas become more vulnerable. Russia has to choose what to protect first, and in a drone war, that choice becomes a constant strain. Putin started the invasion in 2022 believing he would crush Ukraine. In June 2026, what we see is a different picture. Ukraine is still standing, occupied Crimea is feeling the pressure, Moscow is closing airports, and Russia's rear areas can no longer sleep as peacefully. I'm Milson Alves, Global and International Affairs Specialist, and my purpose is to keep you well informed with the truth every day. The news links are in the video description. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and at the end, check out the comments so you can be even more engaged with the Milson Alves community.